There's a certain kind of frustration that can only come from not getting enough sleep. And I don't mean just being tired. What I really mean is not being able to relax, not being able to get the quality sleep that you need to. You're up at night, and then there's the feeling of being foggy in the morning, which then leads to feeling even more tired the next day. And now you're stuck in a loop you can't break. You've probably already tried the usual remedies, magnesium supplements, cutting out screen time before bed, maybe even different sleep apps, or maybe just regular melatonin. Sometimes they help, but other times you still wake up feeling drained. Now, I've also tried red light therapy blankets for this type of situation, and I'll leave a link to that video. But PEMF Therapy for Sleep caught my attention. PEMF stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Therapy, and it's been talked about as a really good drug-free way to improve sleep quality. Now the question is, does it actually work? Let's find out. So in this video, I'll break down how PEMF therapy works for sleep specifically, what the research actually says it'll do for your sleep, my own experience using it in my personal routine, and then the pros and cons on whether it's worth your time and your money. And again, here, we're specifically talking about sleep. If you're new here, I'm Cam. I test out recovery and wellness tools to figure out what actually works and not just sounds good in theory. I try to cut out the fluff and just give you the stuff that's worth your time. I'll be honest, sleep has always been the foundation of everything I do. If my sleep falls apart, everything suffers. Performance at work, energy levels, focus, even the desire to socialize. Your happiness just unravels. And even when you're doing everything right, sometimes life just gets in the way and your sleep schedule is completely thrown off and all over the place. Other times, you go to bed tired, but your mind just won't shut off. But then eventually you fall asleep only to wake up at 3 a.m. and just staring at the ceiling. I've been through many stretches like that, and I know how brutal it can be to wake up feeling exhausted, sometimes even more than when you went to bed. Or maybe you might just be feeling like, this is going to be a long day ahead of me. Now, over the years, I've experimented with a lot of recovery and wellness tools. Red light therapy panels, compression boots, sauna blankets, cold plunges, supplements, you name it. Each of them have their place, but PEMF stood out to me mainly because it doesn't try to knock you out. Instead, it claims to gently recalibrate your nervous system, basically signaling to your brain to move from a high alert state to a deep rest state. Now that's what got me curious. So I picked up a PEMF mat. I've tried many of them, but this time I committed to using it for several weeks, just running my own experiment. Most of my sessions were relatively short. I try to mix it in right before bed, in the evening, and sometimes even laying down and sleeping with the device for a little bit. So how does PEMF actually work? I have another video that covers this in depth, but at the simplest level, the mat sends out gentle, low-frequency electromagnetic pulses into your body. These pulses are extremely low. They're usually between 0 to 30 hertz. For context, that's lower than the frequency of most Wi-Fi routers. The pulses are non-ionizing, so it's not the kind of radiation that will damage your DNA or anything like that. But here's the interesting part. Your brain already operates at different frequencies. I would describe these almost like channels on a radio. When you're alert, you're in the high beta waves. When you're winding down, you shift towards theta. And when you're in deep sleep, that's the delta range, between 0.5 to 4 hertz. And that's what we care about for this use case. What PEMF does is gently nudge your brain towards those slower frequencies and rhythms, basically helping you settle into the right state for sleep. Some researchers even call this brainwave entertainment, because your brain is syncing to the rhythm of the PEMF signal. And it's not just about brainwaves. PEMF therapy also reduces cortisol, the stress hormone most people know about, and then it also supports serotonin, which is very important for mood regulation, and then also affects your ability to wind down in the evening or whenever you choose to. It's also been shown to stimulate the pineal gland, and this is the part of the body that is involved in the melatonin production process, basically the hormone that regulates your sleep and wake cycle. Now, of course, anecdotes are nice, but hard data means a lot more. In a 2023 double-blinded clinical trial on insomnia, 150 adults used a 1 hertz PEMF device for 4 weeks. Nearly 70% of the participants improved their sleep quality, and that was compared to 35% in the placebo group. Now, they didn't just feel better, they actually recorded measurable improvements in sleep latency, efficiency, and then actual hours slept. Now, sleep latency is very important here because it measures how long it takes to actually fall asleep. Basically, as soon as your head hits the pillow, the clock starts ticking. In another study in 2025, looking at the vagus nerve, almost 500 people participated in this one, and the group that used PEMF reported significant improvements in both sleep and anxiety reduction. Now that's massive, and it's one of those few recovery tools that has been clinically tested to this degree. So let's talk about what I noticed when I put this PEMF therapy device to the test. So the first 2 weeks, I didn't really notice much. I tracked my sleep stats using an Apple Watch, and then I made a journal entry on how I felt every single morning. On top of that, I also made a journal entry on how I felt in the middle of the day. Very simple, very easy to track, and very easy to stick with. So I felt a little calmer after each session, but I wouldn't consider it anything groundbreaking to report on. Now, by week number 3, I started to fall asleep a lot faster. And here I don't mean the quality of my sleep improved, I just mean I slept longer. Instead of tossing around in bed and just letting my mind wander, I felt more at ease. And by the 5th week, that's when the bigger changes that I would describe showed up. See, I consider myself a morning person. So this is something I immediately noticed: waking up, feeling very refreshed, more ready for the day, and just not having those lingering thoughts in my mind that I had the previous day. It felt like a really nice reset. Now, PEMF therapy is not like taking a sleeping pill. I would describe it as setting the stage and giving your nervous system the right conditions to rest without actually trying to force it. So here are the pros and cons I've noticed using PEMF for sleep. On the plus side, completely passive protocol, especially for sleep. You basically plug the device in and you're good to go to bed. Most PEMF devices these days have a built-in timer that will immediately shut off when you choose to. It's also safe, non-invasive, drug-free. That's very important because you don't want to develop complete dependency on some of these sleep aids that are out there and that might also have some adverse side effects. And unlike a lot of trendy tools, PEMF actually has a lot of clinical research behind it, and I'm usually keeping tabs on what the latest is and then also trying to learn from it and apply it to whatever will benefit my life. Hopefully you can also learn from that. Now, on the downside, quality devices, I usually say this, but they start at around $1,000. But I want you to view it as an investment that is long-term and it will eventually pay off. The results aren't instant. You need consistency almost with everything, and I mean consistency over weeks, and you also need to keep track of everything. Now, not everyone is gonna do the tracking part by itself. I would consider that a downside because you need to be the type of person that does that, or just develop those type of habits where you can do journal entries, or you can just check your Apple Watch or your Whoop device, whatever you choose. So who does PEMF therapy for sleep actually help? I would say the type of person that already does all the right things. You already work out, you eat well, you avoid screens late at night, and still somehow you're waking up tired. Or you're the kind of person that is always on, pushing through long work days, sometimes using caffeine, and then just wishing that there was an off switch that you could just flip in your mind at the end of the day. Or perhaps you're thinking a little bit more long term. Why? Because you're focused on keeping stress and inflammation levels low. So over the long run, you can stay sharp, active, and do all those things that you love for multiple years. And by the way, we all go through declines, so it's really just about trying to slow it down in the best way that we can. For me, PEMF therapy works because it doesn't demand any extra effort. It just quietly supports the good habits that I've been trying to build for multiple years and try to be consistent with. So is PEMF therapy worth trying for sleep? I say yes, but with the right expectations. Now, this is not an overnight miracle or some quick success story. But if you stick to your current routine or your chosen routine, and I don't mean for a couple of days, we're talking at least a couple of weeks, it can help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and help you wake up feeling more recharged. Now, I'll also link to some of the studies I mentioned earlier, along with a deeper breakdown on PEMF therapy for sleep on my website. And then I'll soon be sharing specific devices that I would recommend, and I'll share those in separate videos. In the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. Would you ever try PEMF therapy for sleep? Does it sound too sci-fi? Maybe you've tried something else. Whatever it is that you want to share, drop your comments down below and let's have a conversation.